Rights and Responsibilities of America's Protection by Abigail Jones, Jahaira Sandoval Sota, Alejandra Blake Moran, and Abigail Krajewski.
On September 1957, two nations, the United States of America and Canada, agreed to create NORAD, the North American Air Defense Command. Using NORAD, America has a right to defend themselves, even though it comes with a great number of responsibilities that are needed for the protection of America.
Originally, the North American Air Defense Command was created because of the Cold War. This war would involve many countries. Of the many world powers that were connected and concerned with the nuclear threats that the Soviet Union had made were the United States and Canada. NORAD was a central operational control of continental air defense against the threats of being bombed by the Soviet Union. On May 12, 1958, Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King and President Franklin Roosevelt had a formal agreement to create NORAD for protection of both nations. NORAD is currently located at Cheyenne Mountain Space Force Station in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today, NORAD is used for aerospace warning, control, and sea warnings for North America, also known as maritime warning. NORAD has renamed to North America Aerospace Defense Command because of the March 1981 renewal, which redefined NORAD's missions, aerospace warning, and aerospace control for North America.
The Cold War occurred close to the surrender of Nazi Germany in May 1945. The Soviets were determined to maintain control of Eastern Europe in order to protect any possible renewed threat from Germany, and they were determined on spreading communism worldwide, mainly because of ideological reasons which scared the Americans and the British, because they did not want permanent Soviet domination in Eastern Europe, and there was a threat that Soviet-influenced communist parties were coming to power in the democracies of Western Europe. The Cold War had reached its peak in 1948 to 1953. At this period, the Soviets unsuccessfully blockaded the western-held sectors of West Berlin, 1948 to 1949. The United States and its European allies formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, which was a unified military command to help resist the Soviet presence in Europe in 1949. The Soviet Union used.
By 1952 to 1957, the Cold War's tensions drifted somewhat, largely falling due to the death of longtime Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin in 1953. Nevertheless, the war remained a unified military organization in the Soviet bloc countries. The Warsaw Pact was formed in 1955, and Western Germany was admitted into NATO that same year. Another strange stage of Cold War was in 1958 to 1962. The United States and Soviet Union began developing ballistic missiles, and by 1962 the Soviets began secretly installing missiles in Cuba that would be used in launched nuclear attacks on U.S. cities. This later sparked the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a confrontation that brought the two powers to brink of the war, an agreement that was reached to withdraw the missiles. In 1991, the Cold War had come to an end due to the Soviet Union collapsing, and 15 new independent nations were born in its ashes, including Russia, with a democratically elected anti-communist leader.
On May 12, 1958, the agreement between Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King and the U.S. government established NORAD. NORAD was created to conduct aerospace warning and control in the defense of North America, but it was mainly a response to the increasing vulnerability of Canada and the United States to air attacks from the Soviet Union in the intensifying Cold War. NORAD was especially helpful during the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s because NORAD would be able to find any threat and inform the people to help figure out a solution. NORAD's mission was to defend the United States, and the air bases from any aerial attacks from Cuba would be carried out. In the case of an airborne invasion, NORAD would escort paratroops carrying planes from their bases to a staging area over the dry Tortugas Islands at the end of the Florida Keys, which is just one example of how NORAD has been used throughout the years.
Rights that go along with NORAD. NORAD is a binational military organization involving the United States and Canada, established in 1957 with a formal agreement signed in 1958. NORAD is tasked with providing aerospace warning and control, and since 2006, maritime warning for the defense of North America. NORAD is vigilant in protecting the rights and freedoms of Americans and Canadians.
Within NORAD.mil, it states that on Veterans Day for America and Remembrance Day for Canada, the members of the Binational Command will go to the Memorial Park in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and have a ceremony to reflect on the tradition and legacy of veterans who fought for their country in battles to defend the rights and freedoms that the North Americans cherish. Responsibilities that go along with NORAD. NORAD responds to unknown, unwanted, and unauthorized air activity approaching and operating within aerospaces and providing aerospace and maritime warnings for North America. NORAD provides aerospace warning and control, and since 2006, maritime warning.
Maritime is a severe local storm warning affecting coastal water areas or a warning of potentially dangerous weather conditions. An example of this is when there was a terrorist attack on the United States on September 11, 2011. The next year, on January 2002, the Canadian maritime and transport aircrafts were helping the international counter-terrorism operations that were in Persian Gulf in Afghanistan.
Aerospace Control Officers, or ACS, are crucial to the command and control of air and space assets. They operate as air traffic controllers, air battle managers, tactical air control party, or air officers, and are paving the way in space operations.
Aerospace warning includes the detection, validation, and warning of attack against North America by aircraft, missiles, or space vehicles. An example of aerospace warning being used in history was the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. The organization played a critical role in responding to the attacks and protecting North American airspace due to being oblivious to the situation and if there would be more attacks or problems that would occur.
NORAD.mil informs us that to accomplish the important missions at NORAD, it continually adjusts its structure to meet the demands of our changing world. NORAD has a tactical warning and attack for the aerospace waning mission. It uses multiple of their weapons such as satellites, fighter jets, airborne radars, and more to detect and act on any air-based threat to the United States and Canada. An attack for the aerospace waning mission. It uses multiple of their weapons such as satellites, fighter jets, airborne radars, and more to detect and act on any air-based threat to the United States and Canada. NORAD does other things from aerospace warning and maritime warning, such as helping detect illegal trafficking. They pass what they find to the civil law enforcement so that they can help get rid of illegal drugs. Along with new perspectives, citizens and the U.S. have different points of views on NORAD. Tracking Santa is what catches the attention of the youth. Elders find NORAD better for our safety and how responsive they are to our country now. NORAD was more controversial because it placed Canada in a direct partnership with the United States and their priorities preferencing both. According to NORAD.mil, both countries work bilaterally, but NORAD is under one chain of command and mission for the protection of North America.
NORAD was controversial because it placed Canada in a direct partnership with the United States in their priorities. The controversy started because of the fact that Americans were coming into Canadian territory as a part of NORAD. Canada was in a sticky situation as they were quite aware of potential threat to the continent and agreed with the Americans because they wanted to defend North America, but at the same time they were worried America would gain power over Canada. In reality, they wanted American presence to be avoided whenever it came to convenient and wanted it to be short-term. This was actually proven quite difficult, though. By the mid-1950s, at least 15,000 Americans were serving in Canada. Canada tried to keep whatever control they could once they were placed under the Visiting Forces Act of 1947. Nevertheless, they only had to control the criminal law and not the military.
Furthermore, relations between the two countries weren't easy when Canada did not feel like they were treated as equal with the United States under NORAD. Another fear for the Canadians was that they could be involved in some issues that they did not want to be involved in. This was shown blatantly when Canada hesitated to nuclear weapons being brought into the country. Additionally, tension arose when Canada did not want to be involved in missile defense because they were worried it would further an arms race. In 1968, when the renewal of NORAD started, Canada got the anti-ballistic missile clause, which said that they did not want to take any part in any active ballistic missile defense. NORAD created many uneasy moments with the two countries, but are still working together to protect North America.
NORAD has proven itself effective in its roles of watching, warning, and responding. NORAD continues to play an important role in the defense of North America by evolving to meet the changing threats that have come into the continent.
The USNorth.com and NORAD look to the future marked by rapid shifts in the geopolitical environment and the technological advancements humans will make by the guide of the past, creating a better future with problems more solvable and centered, but their main priorities will always be the people. Conclusion: using NORAD North America has been safe from outside threats and dangers. NORAD has a great many of responsibilities that they take seriously for the rights and protection of the people.